What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the NYG Blue Zone. It's your boy Atticus coming at you today with a preview show of the New York Football Giants hosting the Washington Commanders this Sunday. So neither one of these teams is fighting for a playoff position. In fact, some people have argued that this is the toilet bowl and they're just playing to see who gets the better draft pick. But I'm for one, I don't believe that. I don't believe that either one of these teams, their players, their coaches are going out there with the intent to tank the season. And honestly, the Titans didn't do the Giants any favors by winning that game last week. Good for them, though. They finally won another game. But the Giants right now, they hold the number one pick in the draft, but I don't think that's what's motivating these players when they go out on the field this week. In fact, if Joe Shane's our general manager, it probably doesn't matter to us anyway. I don't care where we land in the draft. I would rather have the draft capital trade down and get more picks as opposed to having the number one pick in the draft, particularly when we already got our starting quarterback, franchise quarterback. We've got a good running back room. We've got some good pieces on defense. I think that I would much rather have more swings at the bat, more draft picks than the highest draft pick. So I don't think the players are really motivated by that. I think there's a lot of fans that's on team tank. I'm not a team tank guy. I'm a team win guy. And I hope that most of you are too, but I don't think that that's going to play into the game plan going into this game this week. But there's a lot of storylines that came out this week too. Storylines and things that have happened that's going to affect us now and in the future. So we got some injuries, we got guys returning, some depth signings, and overall just two teams that's searching for some kind of footing heading into the final stretch of 2025. There's 4 games left for both teams, and I think both teams are really going to try to win these games. So we're going to talk about all the latest news, what it means for this week's matchup, what it means for the future and all that. But before I get into all of that, I want to ask you guys to please like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so that every time we drop some content, you're one of the first ones to be notified. And guys, we are almost at 1,000 subscribers. So it's pretty cool that so many people have decided that we're one of the places that they want to go to get some content on the New York Giants. So we appreciate that. We appreciate all the engagement. And keep it coming. Keep the comments coming, no matter if it's good or bad. I like to hear and try to respond to them all. So I appreciate you guys for that. So let's start off with the Giants side of things because there is some movement. Darius Moussaou is returning from injury. And let's be honest and fair, he ain't a world beater. The guy's a 6th-round draft pick from the 2024 draft. He was drafted to be a depth piece behind Bobby Okereke and Micah McFadden. And honestly, we see that we desperately need the depth. Like, if anything that we've seen this year is that Joe Shane did a terrible job of making sure that we had enough pieces behind our starters so that we could survive some of these games, that those pieces could come in and give our guys a rest and we wouldn't miss a beat and would continue to be in position to win these games. And he has failed at that. But having Darius Moussaou come back is a big deal for the Giants because when he first joined the team, you could see that there was a significant drop-off in his position. He wasn't able to put forth the type of effort and be effective when he was on the field. And we hurt. It actually hurt us. But we did see improvement this year. The more he played, the better he got. The more he was coached up, the better he got. To finally, when he started playing well, he was making TFLs. He was good against the run. He knew where to be, whether it was the A or the B gap. And he wasn't as much of a drop-off from having Micah McFadden on the field as he was before. And then he got hurt. And then we had Flanagan Fowles come in. And he was a drop-off from Moussaou. And then he started to play better, and he got hurt. And then we just had a rotation of different players who just weren't really ready to play under the spotlights when we needed them to play the best. So we missed him. So he's coming back, and he's not the centerpiece of our defense. He's still a developmental player. He's still a depth piece, but he's a young guy that the Giants like. He understands the system, and him coming back to play this week is absolutely going to help to stabilize the depth that we've been missing, especially because Micah McFadden isn't ready to go and hasn't been on the field. Speaking of which, he is still out, but he wants to get back up on the field. According to Coach Mike Kafka, he sees him around the facility and he's training hard, playing hard. He's just about ready to go, and he'll probably make an appearance, his first appearance back, maybe when we play the Raiders. So, and people will say, why you want to come back now? It's the end of the season. What does that do for anybody? Well, it doesn't do anything for anyone but Micah McFadden, and it helps us to stop the run, which we haven't been able to do. Yeah, this is a season loss, but players still want to play. They still want to be effective. They're still trying to make sure that they get enough film out there so that they get handsome contracts when their time comes. So I get why he wants to play, and we desperately need him. And now that Moussaou is getting better, he could probably finally be the depth piece that he was drafted to become for the Giants. So he's pushing to come back, but as of now, he's still going to be on the sideline, hoping to get back on the field. And while he's the biggest loss that we've seen at that middle linebacker position, and this is not to take away anything from Bobby Okereke, because he has played quietly, he's played very well. I mean, he's at the top of the league in tackles again. He's as reliable as he's ever been. And last year, remember, he had a dip in his numbers because he was playing through injury, but he played okay. This year, he's played better. Even though he's a step slower, he's played better. So that's good to see. But, if Micah McFadden gets back, he plays fast. He gets downhill quickly. He's a tackle for loss machine. And when he went out, we definitely felt his absence. So in addition to Moussaou returning, there's another depth piece that the Giants brought on this week. They signed Casey Rogers, a defensive tackle. And this ain't a big name. He ain't a household name. There's nothing flashy or sexy about this dude. But it was a necessary signing because the Giants are definitely missing depth at the interior defensive line position. Like, they've taken a beating up there, and they need fresh legs to give Dexter Lawrence and Darius Alexander a break. And give them breaks earlier in the game so that as we get into the more important minutes, as it has become for the Giants in the later stages of the game, you need Dexter Lawrence fresh. You need Darius Alexander fresh. I don't think Nacho's going to be playing, but whoever's in there who have been cornerstone pieces of that defensive line needs to be fresh. And the only way that you can do that is if you have depth at that position. So Casey Rogers gives us that depth that we need. So, and with Washington potentially turning to the ground game based on the situation that's going up with their quarterback position, this signing makes a lot of sense for them. And then the Giants also brought Cameron Johnston onto the practice squad, which is something that they desperately needed to do. And I'm going to tell you why. The Giants have done a poor job with personnel management with this team, particularly on special teams. And we saw this happen last year when Graham Gano was suffering through an injury and he wasn't even available to suit up and play for a game, and we had no kicker. And then we saw Jamie Gillen actually taking kicks for the team. And I think he actually made a field goal or an extra point or something like that last year. But it put us in situations where you had to go for it on fourth down, in situations where you would normally either kick a field goal or you would punt. We did the same thing again this year. Now, this was a Dable thing where he failed to have a kicker on the roster, where you had Graham Gano, once again injury prone, who wasn't available to play, and we had no kicker. How many times do we have to go through a situation where a kicker caused us to lose the game? And in this case, it wasn't the kicker. It was the fact that the coach didn't have one, caused us to lose the game. So Kafka, he got word that there was something going on with Jamie Gillen, where he may or may not be available to play. When he's questionable, you better get somebody on this team that can punt the ball, Because if you're in a fourth and whatever situation and you're deep in your territory and you turn the ball over to the other team, you put yourself in a bad situation. Why? Because you were bad at personnel management. So I think this makes sense. It's better to have the guy and not need him than to need him and not have him. So I think it was the right move at the right time, and it shows that you can handle some of the basic decisions that comes with being a head coach. So these late season roster tweaks, they just tell you how fragile the margins are, how fragile our depth situation has become. And special team mistakes, they can flip a game. So it's best that the Giants did this to protect themselves. So I do want to start talking a little bit about the Commanders and Zach Ertz. He has got an ACL tear and he is out for the season. And I watched that happen in real time, and it was hard to look at. And honestly, I didn't watch this entire game because it was a shit show. The I don't know how you let the Minnesota Vikings, with probably the worst quarterback in the National Football League, dominate you the way that they did. But their defense showed up, and the Vikings defense showed up, and they came to play. They played well. And one of the plays resulted in Zach Ertz tearing his ACL, where his leg bent in a way that legs aren't designed to bend. And it was hard to look at. And you knew immediately when Zach Ertz took that hit and the way his leg went that he was done. And I felt for the guy. I felt for the player. Um, I don't, as much as I don't like any of the NFC East teams outside of the Giants, obviously, I don't want to see their players get injured because these are still people, and but I'm also not going to miss Zach Ertz this Sunday because I don't care if he's been in a Commander's uniform, a Cardinals uniform, or an Eagles uniform. Time after time, he has found himself or put himself in the right position to make the right catch, to move the chains or score a touchdown against my Giants, and he's been a pain in my ass. So that's a huge loss for Washington. He's a big part of their playbook, and he's one of the few veterans who honestly kept that offense moving. Scary Terry was held to minimal yardage. I think he led the team with yards last week with like 41. They just had a bad outing as a team. But Zach Ertz, he's a weapon on third downs in the red zone. And he was able to help set up Jaden Daniels to have a nice soft landing into the NFL. When you got a target as reliable as Zach Ertz has been, that's hard to lose that guy. So, and then the biggest thing that came out of Washington is probably the injury to Jaden Daniels and his elbow, and should I say the re-injury of the elbow. And I gotta say, Washington, I don't understand what they do over there, their personnel department, their coaching staff, their medical team. I don't know why they seem to be that organization that puts quarterbacks in unnecessary high-risk situations. We saw it with RG3 when he injured his leg, similarly to the way that Zach Ertz injured his, and he stayed on the field and continued to play the game even after having a conversation with the coach, the trainers, and the medical personnel. They let him go back out there and play, wrapped his leg up, sent him back on the field, and created more damage to an already damaged leg. Now, there's a difference between playing hurt and playing injured. They sent him out there playing injured, and I would dare say it ruined his career because the whole trajectory of his style of play was altered based on he's dealing with a bum knee now. He was not the same player after that. Usher in Jaden Daniels. I watched that play with his elbow being bent in the wrong direction too. And I knew when I saw it, there was some tear, some ligament damage. There was something that was seriously injured in that man's elbow. It's not his throwing arm, but it's still a part of his body that he's always going to be conscious of while he's on the field, making sure he doesn't take a hit in that direction. The way he falls is going to be altered. Everything that happens with him on the field is going to be guided by this thing in his mind telling him his arm ain't right. He's not going to run out of the pocket the way that he used to. He'll probably take more sacks. And to bring him back when your team is 3-9 and your chances of making the playoffs are slim to none. And I'm not saying if he's healthy, you don't put him back, but it's like they forced him back. And then for him to re-injure that same arm, and he looked like dog shit anyway. Why would y'all do that to this player as an organization? I don't understand what Washington does over there, what's in the water over there, but it has happened with different coaching staffs over the years. So he's questionable to play, and he's a competitor. So if you ask him, he would probably say he would like to be out there with his boys. Should he be out there? Absolutely not. The coaches should sit him. And this isn't me wanting some type of advantage because I think we're a better team anyway at this point. But this is about the player. I'd love to see him in. It's unfortunate that him and Malik Neighbors can't be on the field together again. I would love for Malik Neighbors to finally get revenge against these guys, but he's not going to be there either. But what they're doing with this quarterback, if they put him back out there, is stupid. But if he does play, they're going to have him handing the ball off a lot because they want to reduce the amount of potential hits that he's going to take. They want to reduce the amount of throws that he's going to make. What I would do, I'd sit him for the rest of the year. But who am I? Let him start him. And then on top of that, Washington's offensive line is an absolute mess. And this is after they made huge financial investments to improve that line. And they saw some dividends when they first took the field, game one of the season, maybe even a little bit game two. But they've regressed, man. And then a lot of their starters, they're either limited or questionable to play. Their pass protection has been so streaky even when they're healthy. And now it's worse. And that's advantage Giants, right? This is something that Dexter Lawrence, Brian Burns, Abdul Carter, and Kayvon Thibodeau should absolutely be ready to attack. And not for nothing, with the reinforcements that they just brought in to help Dexter Lawrence, with Brian Burns already playing at a high level, particularly when they have him and Abdul Carter on that same side of the line. And then Kayvon Thibodeau, he's back. He's not going to be playing hurt or injured. He's okay. And he's coming back. So he's been limited so they could make sure, but he's coming back. This is the perfect opportunity. This is one of those opportunities that when presented and you got that much talent that we do at the edge rusher position in the interior part of that defensive line, they should absolutely take advantage of. Dexter Lawrence, I'm going to go on record and saying he should get 2 sacks. Brian Burns should get another, and I would love to see Abdul Carter get 1 or 2. And I think Kayvon is due as well. I mean, he's been away, so he might have a little bit of rust, but Brian Burns, Abdul Carter, and Dexter Lawrence should have a field day. And it was nice to hear the coach say that Abdul Carter has made some what seems to be mental changes, and he's maturing in a little bit of a way where, first of all, he didn't get in any trouble this past week, which is good, but he seems to have gotten the message, and that's good. That's good. In the season that's lost, let's see him take advantage of these opportunities. So let's talk about the actual game plan, because I think even in a tough season where we have been just riddled with injuries and unbelievable collapses to finish games, they can still win this game. The game plan really needs to be to pressure the quarterback. And I don't care who it is. If they got Mariota in there or if they got Jaden Daniels in there, they're going to lean heavily on their running game. But when those situations come, when the Giants put them in second and third and long, get pressure on that quarterback. And don't just settle for pressures like get sacks, get pass deflections, tips. Do everything you need to do to make it extremely uncomfortable for Washington's quarterbacks and create opportunities on defense. And if Daniels is playing Hurts, you got to heat him up early. Make him throw that ball using that compromised body that he's working with. If he don't play, it doesn't matter. Mariota is not going to beat you with his arm. He's not going to beat the Giants. His first year, I remember watching his first game As a professional, Marcus Mariota threw 4 touchdown passes. He looked good, but then he looked like dog shit in every game after that. He's had flashes, but nothing that has made an NFL franchise say that this is our guy. Nothing. He is not the guy. You know, he's a below average game manager type of quarterback. He did have a good game this year, but Drew Lock had a good game last year. So that tells me nothing about him. It didn't sell me on him at all. You know, even a broken clock is right twice a day. That's what Marcus Mariota is and has become. So I'm really not afraid of him, and nor do I think the Giants should be. And if they have the right game plan, they can beat them. You know, they need to stop the run. They need to be disruptive in the middle of the field. You don't have a Zach Ertz coming in there sitting in those voids. Bring a safety down. Give some help cheating to that A, that B gap, right? They need to be confusing on defense. They need to pack the line and then drop people back into coverage so that the offensive coordinator doesn't know where the blitz is coming from. You know, Kingsbury's done a really good job with this offense, particularly last year. I mean, he had those guys looking dynamic, but they're dealing with some injuries. They're dealing with different pieces. They're in a situation where they're scattered and frazzled. Take advantage of it. Have the linebacker sit in and be in the right position on those short routes. Have those safeties cheat up. You know, have some disguised coverages. Like I want to see Bullen get really creative. They don't really know what to expect from him, and I think that he had a tough task going up against the New England Patriots last week. But this week he's going up against a much lesser opponent. Get creative. Throw some spice in there. Have these guys guessing. Trip them up as many times as you can. And like I said before, stop the run, right? Like if you stop the run, put them in a lot of second and third and long situations, that is prime opportunities for Abdul Carter, Brian Burns, and Dexter Lawrence and Kayvon Thibodeau. That's why we got those guys here, right? So you get these teams in these situations where you could just tee off at the quarterback and get to the quarterback. That's what this defense was, the idea of the design of this defense, and they just haven't been able to put that together. And this is the perfect time. This is a get right game for the Giants, for them to put that all together and show everybody what we thought the Giants defense was going to look like. You know, so what does this game mean? Like, what's it going to be? This is an evaluation week, right? And nobody's pretending that the Giants are making a playoff run this week, right? We ain't saying that. But I'm also saying that we ain't taking. They want to win. They are not going to tank the season for a player. They already got their franchise quarterback. They already have a solid running back room. The tight end room is improving. The offensive line has been gelling. I'm liking what I'm seeing in a lot of areas on the Giants. There's a few things, a few pieces away from being a playoff contending teams. They're very close, very close. So this game is all about evaluations. It's all about Mike Kafka doing what he needs to do to be considered as a head coach in this league. I think he really didn't do a lot to build his case last week. In fact, he's made some decisions that made me say, yeah, he ain't ready for a head coaching position, at least with the Giants. But I haven't changed my feelings about him as an offensive coordinator. I think he's very good. I like what he's done with this offense. I like what he's done given the fact that he lost key players on this offense, and this offense has kept this team in games all year, with the exception of maybe one or two games, but he's entitled to that. So I like Kafka's offensive mind. But you got Charlie Bullen, who's a interim defensive coordinator. You think he's not trying to put some film out there so that he can get a job or keep a job? You think that Tim Kelly's not trying to put film out there? You think some of these players who are playing for contracts aren't trying to put film out there? These guys want to win. I want to see them win. I'm tired of going to games or watching games and being on the losing side of the scoreboard. I'm tired of it. We finally look like a more than competent and capable football team on the offensive side of the ball. And I would dare say that in 10 of the 12 games that we've played so far, 10 of the 13 games we've played so far, special teams has looked okay. Um, but those other 3 games, oh my God, what a letdown. Defensively, I have not seen a complete game for the defense since Jackson Dart's first start against the Chargers. And maybe that performance they put on against the Eagles on Thursday Night Football. But that Thursday night game on against the Eagles, I think the Eagles did more to shoot themselves in the foot than the Giants did to win it. I'll take it. I'll take it. But I think the Eagles really self-destructed during that game more than the Giants beat the crap out of them. So yeah, I think that's what this game means for the Giants. There's a lot of evaluation going on. There's a lot of character building going on. You know, losing these games late in the season, it really shows what type of players you got, like who's really in it, who's really got that dog in them, who's still fighting, who's showing improvement, like who's checking the boxes that you got on your sheet that tells you whether or not a guy should stay or a guy needs to go, whether that's a player or a coach. And it's a tone setter for the offseason, right? It's really when you leave the field for the last time during a season with an L and you compare that to what that feeling is that you have when you won, it's different. It's the energy's different, the vibe is different, the universe interacts with you. It's just different. So I think the Giants really want to get out there and they want to win this game for a variety of different reasons. So I want to also talk about these 3 players in particular. We got Jermaine Illuminor, Wan'Dale Robinson, and we got Isaiah Hodgins. And all 3 of these guys are in a situation where either their contracts are up or they're going to become free agents. And the Giants are in a prime position right now to make a decision on what they want to do with their futures, right? Jermaine Illuminor came into a broken offensive line. Obviously, we had Andrew Thomas there, but there were a lot of questions, even at the center position. But he has solidified the right side of that line, with the exception of one game where and I think it was against the Bears, where he just had 2 completely blown protections. Outside of that game, Jermaine Illuminor has been very good for the New York Giants. We actually have a respectable or functioning offensive line at this point. I mean, years past prior to him coming here, we were just an absolute mess in protecting the quarterback and opening up run lanes. They got to find a way to sign this guy. And I don't care. And I remember when he was signed here, he said all he wanted was a 2-year deal because he wasn't sure that the Giants was where he wanted to stay. He wasn't sure if they were going to have the right pieces in place because he wants to win. I think he wants to be here. I think the Giants need him here. I think they need to lock him down now. With him on the right, and you got Andrew Thomas on the left, John Runyon's played well. Michael Schmitz Jr. is finally playing well. And then you got GVR, which these guys, GVR, I really don't know. I mean, he's a veteran. He's been decent, but I really thought that when you had Evan Neal moving to guard, that might have been a way to salvage his career. But I like what Carmen Brasillo has done with this unit, the cohesion that they've developed. I like Mbo. Mbo, I think, is going to be a really good swing tackle. I think initially drafting him was with the anticipation of replacing Illuminor, but I like what they have. I like the coach. I think they should sign this guy and keep it going. Wan'Dale Robinson, if I need to explain to anybody who's watching this podcast why we need to extend Wan'Dale Robinson, then you really don't understand football. They said this guy was too short. They said that this guy could not get downfield. They said he wasn't good for the long ball. This guy has delivered. He's the leading receiver in catches and yards for our team this year, and he has earned his reception. The guy is tough. He takes big hits, and when you look back at his story and how he arrived at the NFL, how he got here, you'll understand the amount of grit and determination, or why he has the level of grit and determination that he has. I like Wan'Dale Robinson. He's good. Ever since he returned from that ACL tear a couple of years ago, he has bowled and bowled hard. One of the most reliable pieces that we have on offense. He's New York Giants homegrown. You need to keep that guy. You don't let him walk like you did with Leonard Williams, like you did with Saquon Barkley, like you did with Julian Love, like you did with any of these other players, Xavier McKinney, like you did with any of these other players that went on to have really good careers in other teams. You keep this guy. And I don't give a shit who the general manager is going to be. I don't give a shit who the head coach is going to be. You should keep both of these players. In fact, introduce Isaiah Hodgins, where Isaiah Hodgins is an interesting piece because I don't know why the Buffalo Bills didn't find a place for him, because I think he could be a solid number 3 on that team, or the San Francisco 49ers, particularly when they got rid of Deebo Samuels. I thought, why wouldn't you keep Isaiah Hodgins? He's very reliable. But on the Giants, he would be a solid number 2. In fact, in many games, I think he played better than Darius Slayton, and I like Darius Slayton. But every time Isaiah Hodgins has come to the New York Giants, he's done nothing short of deliver, and deliver in times and ways that you need him to. If nothing else, he's a solid depth piece. Why you would ever move, why you would ever move away from keeping Isaiah Hodgins on this team is beyond me. The guy bowls hard. He brings good energy. He's reliable. He's a good route runner. He's not the fastest, but in every other category of where you need a receiver to check a box, he's done that. And it would be inexpensive to sign him for a couple of years. I'm not saying 3 or 4 years, sign him for 2 years. But the guy has played himself into a contract. You know, I really like all these guys. I think regardless of who the general manager is, regardless of who the head coach is, whoever the offensive coordinator is, and the defensive coordinator for that fact, you need to get deals done to keep these guys in New York Giants uniforms. That's my perspective. The last thing I want to talk about is Brian Cox, the Giants defensive line coach. He got terminated last week, and there was some type of disagreement with Brian Cox in his seating arrangement, along with some of the other coaches on a flight back from the game from New England the other day. Brian Cox took exception to being told, along with the other assistants, that they're going to be seated towards the rear of the plane instead of the front of the plane, which is where they historically have sat. And when the seating arrangements were changed, he had a problem with it. He had a big problem with it. And he just kept chirping. And I guess Mike Kafka took exception to him continuing to chirp, even though you're one of the reasons, your unit is part of the reason why they've lost so much. In fact, in the most recent game, the flight they're coming home from, y'all gave up 30 points in the first half. Maybe that was the nail in the coffin for Kafka. Maybe he was like, that's it. You got to go. You talking all this shit and you ain't even doing a good job. You got to go. I don't know. Do I care? No, I don't care. If it were Carmen Brasillo and he was yapping about that, I would probably take exception. Brasillo's delivering. And I'm not saying that if you are a coach who is not delivering, then you deserve to be fired because of where your seat is. But when you chirping about it and you making all that noise, and you were part of the reason why I'm stressed the fuck out right now as the head coach, I'm not mad at it. There is no part of me that feels like Mike Kafka was wrong for firing this guy. I will say this. Mike Kafka did enough for me in that game to say, yeah, he probably just decisioned his way out of being a head coach in this league for me. But terminating Bowen, I'm good with it. I'm good with both of those decisions. So we'll see how that goes and how that whole thing plays out. And do I think he's going to be a head coach in this league? I don't know. I think the last 4 games of the year could probably change some people's minds. He could probably come up with some dominating performances that'll at least make me want to take another look. I don't know that I'm on the team Kafka head coach bandwagon or anything like that, but I'd take another look. That means nothing for Joe Shane. though. I don't give a fuck how well we win to close out the season. Joe Shane got to go as far as I'm concerned. But Kafka, I don't know. But Dan Duggan, he reported that, it was all about a plane ride home. And I don't have any reason to doubt that Dan Duggan's reporting is inaccurate. I just really don't give a shit that Brian Cox is no longer a coach for the New York Giants. Hopefully he lands somewhere else and don't complain about where he's seated on a plane or a bus or a train or whatever. But it's really a non-news situation as far as I'm concerned. But that's it for me today, everybody. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so every time we drop some new content, you're one of the first ones to be notified. And we're getting close, guys. We're almost at 1,000 subscribers. TikTok, we got a ton of subscribers. So we're doing really well, and we appreciate you guys. I know you could be doing anything else, watching any other podcast, but the fact that you watched ours, we really appreciate that. So thanks again for coming. Thanks again for joining. Go Big Blue.
Yeah, a lot of girls probably crying from my old high school. Look, they see me everywhere they go. I probably would too. Look, crossed over to the Jordan man like I'm Michael. Yeah, eating blessings so much I might need lipo. Yeah, tailored for the doves like I'm walking in chucks. Yeah, it's just in this plan, man, I see all y'all shook. Look, knew that I was great ever since I was a rook. Man, all y'all singles making me look good. Okay, praise to the Most High, yeah, that's Jesus. Look, but when it come to this rap thing, I can't lose. Yeah, back-to-back number ones, that's a thing greats do. Yeah, tell them boys that ain't nothing I can't do. It's my year. It's my year.